Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's not just hot, it's dangerously hot in parts of San Diego County. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. Excessive heat warnings in East County run through next Wednesday. KPBS reporter Andrew Dyer has more about what's being done to help keep people from overheating.
County officials are encouraging people to stay safe as dangerous heat conditions persist in and around San Diego. Excessive heat warnings from the National Weather Service are in effect in the San Diego Mountains through Saturday night and in the deserts through Wednesday. In El Cajon, Hanifa Khalik pushes 3-year-old Sage in a stroller. Khalik says dealing with the heat just comes with living in El Cajon.
Well, today we just went to the library over here and she played with toys and I just sat by and watched and stayed in the library to get some cool air. It's very, very nice in there, actually.
Public libraries and community centers throughout the county are serving as cool zones during their operating hours, where everyone's welcome to enjoy cool air conditioning indoors. Khalik says she appreciates the library for what they offer for children, especially on hot days.
Because they have like free activities and, you know, stuff that interests her and that keeps her engaged. And like I said, it's free.
Officials recommend avoiding alcohol and sugary drinks in favor of water and to avoid unnecessary activities outdoors during the hottest parts of the day. Pets and children should also never be left unattended in a car. Peak heat is expected Saturday when mountain temperatures could top out at 105 degrees. But deserts in San Diego County and in the Coachella Valley could really be cooking with temps higher than 120 degrees expected. For more information and help with free transportation to a county cool zone, people can call 211. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Now, an update on the McCain fire in Boulevard. Crews are continuing to make progress. CAL FIRE says the fire is now 87% contained. It started Monday afternoon near McCain Valley Road and Interstate 8. The fire grew from 1,300 acres to nearly 1,600 early yesterday, though fire activity remained low, according to CAL FIRE. Thousands are expected to pack our beaches through the weekend, but there's a beach hazard you need to be aware of before heading out. It's in effect through Sunday afternoon. High surf peaked today and will last through tomorrow. Waves are expected to hit 3 to 5 feet with sets up to 7 feet in some areas. There's also an increased risk of rip currents. If you get caught in a rip current, the first thing to do is flip over and float. Then swim parallel to the shore. As always, lifeguards recommend you swim near a lifeguard tower.
Now we're still looking at major interior heat over the course of the next couple of days. This will challenge records, and in fact, quite a few records as we go throughout the upcoming weekend. Along with that, dry conditions are going to be continuing. Could we see some changes with regards to the extent of the heat as we head our way into next week? We'll let you know of those changes, and we'll also talk about the potential here for some cloudiness along the coast coming up in just a bit.
It's been 2 months since Palomar Health Medical Group's computers went down. Now we know more about what happened. Over the holiday, PHMG sent an email notice to KPBS saying hackers caused some records to be deleted and patient information compromised. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn has more.
This new information comes after a class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of a patient on June 24th. His attorneys allege negligence on PHMG's part, a violation of the state's Medical Information Confidentiality Act, Customer Records Act, and the rights to privacy, among other claims. The suit is seeking monetary damages. According to Palomar, the breach happened between April 23rd and May 5th. Since May 5th, PHMG's computers have been down and doctors do not have access to patients' records, including prescription information. That's been frustrating for patients looking to get their prescription refilled. Palomar says it doesn't know how many patients' records were compromised in the breach, but that it includes names, dates of birth, social security numbers, medical history, and health insurance information. I spoke to a security expert who says that's quite alarming. Tony Anscombe from ESET says PHMG's patients should assume the data has been breached.
Yeah, this is 2 months since the breach happened. I'd also go back and check medical insurance claims, that nobody's been making fraudulent claims in the last 2 months on your insurance policy. I'd lock my credit file. Now, what that means is nobody can actually use your social security number or your personal information to gain access to credit.
Because hackers were able to download and delete records, USD cybersecurity professor Nicholas Behar says this could be a case of double extortion ransomware.
That leads me to believe that the attacker was attempting to delete the data and then say, hey, if you want your data back, you're going to have to pay us. And then on top of that, once they get the data back, then they'll say, okay, if you don't want us to release the data, then you have to pay us again. And that's becoming very, very common.
Behar says small healthcare systems like Palomar do not have the financial resources or manpower to recover the data quickly. Palomar says anyone with questions about the breach can call the number on your screen. That's 888-829-5736. In the newsroom, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
The days after Independence Day are one of the busiest times of year for the San Diego Humane Society. That's because they typically see an influx of lost dogs come in. Last year, the Humane Society says 273 stray dogs came into their shelter between July 4th and July 7th. Just 76 of them were reclaimed. This year, they're expecting around 300. They're busting out crates and kennels in their conference room in order to make space.
But it is tough because nobody wants to see an animal sit in a crate for an extended period of time. This is kind of our worst nightmare, to go into the 4th of July holiday and already be this full, because we don't have any more kennels. We are at 161% capacity.
The Humane Society says if you find a stray dog, their best chance to be reunited with their owners is if you hold on to them. They recommend checking for a phone number on their collar or check social media for posts about lost dogs. If all that fails, you can call the number on your screen, 858-726-5678. Another healthy jobs report was announced today, but it's some of the finer details that could bring relief to interest rates in the months ahead. SDSU's Miro Kopik explains in the Friday Business Report.
A very solid jobs report. Over 200,000 jobs were created in the economy, kind of in line with expectations. The unemployment rate, though, ticked up a little bit to 4.1%. We've had 42 months of consecutive job growth, which is very strong for the economy as a whole. Two key statistics that were interesting in this jobs report is that the labor force participation rate increased to 62.6%, which shows there's more people entering the labor force. And of those who are entering, it's that 25 to 54, prime age group. That labor rate increased to 83.7%, which is the highest in 22 years. That means more people are kind of coming into the labor force looking for opportunities overall. Wages are increasing, but they're increasing at a decreasing rate. In fact, this report, we saw wages increase 3.9% over a year ago, which is still much higher than the current inflation rate. But this is the first time in 3 years that we saw the wage growth below 4%.
President Biden's team is beefing up his public schedule as he tries to shift the narrative away from his poor debate performance and convince Democrats to continue to support his re-election bid. Julia Benbrook has the latest.
Speaking to a crowd in Wisconsin Friday, President Joe Biden tried to assure voters that he is ready to lead for another 4 years.
My friends, I'm in Wisconsin for one reason, because we're going to win Wisconsin.
After a disappointing debate performance, his campaign announced what it calls an aggressive travel schedule for this month that will take him, the vice president, the first lady, and the second gentleman to every battleground state. This move follows calls from allies to ramp up campaigning and public messaging efforts.
We have to do some things to reassure the public.
Whether it's a 60 Minutes interview or something at the podium at the White House or a town hall.
But every word will be under intense scrutiny as a number of elected officials, Democratic donors, and supporters express deep concerns about Biden's age and capacity to serve a second term.
Every time he had a slip of the lip, which we all do, it was analyzed and maybe overanalyzed. That's what he can expect between now and forever.
After the Wisconsin rally, the president sat down for his first televised interview since the debate. The high-profile ABC interview with George Stephanopoulos is set to air in its entirety Friday evening as a primetime special. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Psychedelic mushrooms are illegal federally, but in California they are being sold in person and online. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says as interest in microdosing psychedelics for mental health is growing, so are concerns over potential risks.
Karen Ferreri says her traumas began in childhood from family issues, a difficult divorce, a high-stress biotech job, and health challenges.
When you have kind of a debilitating PTSD effect from so many traumas in your life, you have to find a way to be your own advocate. I want to be the best person that I can to, be with my doggies, enjoy my life.
In 2019, Ferreri says she experienced a seizure after taking her antidepressant. That's when she decided to seek alternative treatment.
So I began reading a lot about clinical trials with psychedelic drugs, ketamine, LSD, and of course psilocybin.
A study by University of California, San Diego researchers found that microdosing-related Google searches in the U.S. have skyrocketed in the last decade. Kevin Yang is one of the researchers. He says psychedelics have also grown in popularity among clinical researchers.
And in my opinion, for good reason. There's really good clinical trials so far showing that it's useful for treating, things like depression, PTSD, substance use disorders.
Less is known about how many people are actually microdosing, but he advises consumers to proceed with caution.
It's hard to say whether microdosing truly works or not. Some studies have shown that it does, others have shown that it doesn't. But that's not to say that there are probably lots of people out there who are doing it and are certainly benefiting from it.
Yang says labels can't always be trusted.
So you can go to smoke shops, CBD shops, and they'll sell these gummies, chocolates that they're advertising as quote unquote magic mushrooms. When you look more into the ingredients, what's actually really interesting is a lot of these things that they're selling aren't actually the psilocybin mushrooms that are being used in clinical trials. There's a mushroom called Amanita muscaria.
As of Monday, sweets containing Amanita muscaria are being tied to nearly 50 illnesses across 24 states, according to the Food and Drug Administration.
There's no rules or regulations about how these things are produced, how it's being sold.
Ferreri is cautious about her purchases and spoke with a microdosing consultant who tailored a dosing plan and provided ongoing support.
It began working, immediately. I couldn't believe it. And I wasn't intoxicated, I wasn't impaired.
She followed the protocol for about 9 months, taking 2 pills or gummies a day. She created her own ritual, lighting candles, drinking tea, and journaling.
Not saying that, it's a magic cure, it just cured everything. Having some of these problems feel a little bit alleviated just made the day easier to cope with.
Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
The use of lithium-ion batteries is increasing exponentially. They're found in everything from car and bike batteries to smartphones. They're at risk of catching fire or exploding due to the heat of a fire. But how dangerous are they compared to other options? Well, KPBS sci-tech reporter Thomas Fudge is here to talk about all that. And Tom, back in May, We had a real scare when there was that fire at that Otay Mesa warehouse that stored lithium-ion batteries. That was pretty scary.
It was scary, and I talked to some firefighters who went down there, and while the fire was going, and the fire started on May 15th, by the way, when they were down there, they could actually hear lithium-ion batteries inside exploding. And so what they did, one thing you need to know about lithium-ion batteries is that they emit hydrogen, a very flammable gas, when they do burn. And so they sent robots into that space, that warehouse space, to test the atmosphere. And they did find an atmosphere that was very heavy with hydrogen. And in fact, they had a very explosive atmosphere in that building.
Jeez. But you might think, given all that it would have ended with a bang, but it didn't end with a bang.
It did not end with a bang, thank God, because, I mean, you could have had a building-wide explosion that would have been extremely devastating, and that did not happen. And I put the question of why to Robert Rezendi, who is a battalion chief with the San Diego Fire Department and also an expert when it comes to lithium-ion batteries. And when they start to burn, and he said it was due to several factors. One was, he said, good firefighting, and the other was the fact that this warehouse was so huge that you didn't have batteries too close to each other, and so you didn't have that chain reaction that could have led to a building-wide explosion.
So what is it about lithium-ion batteries that makes them such a fire risk?
Well, like I said, they emit hydrogen when they burn, and of course that creates a very kind of scary situation, fire-prone situation in the area. But even when they're in a normal state, they are combustible and they can catch on fire. And I spoke with a fellow named Kent Griffith, who's a professor of chemistry at UC San Diego who deals with these batteries. And he was describing the way they work. They're rechargeable batteries, and they have these ions zipping in between two electrodes inside the battery. And that is a dangerous situation just by itself. And if the batteries are flawed, what can happen is you can have a short circuit. And here's what he had to say about the danger of a short circuit in a battery like this.
Anything you do that creates a short circuit to allow all that heat to be released means you're heating up a lot in a very small volume. And so that has the possibility to turn into a fire if there's a source of fuel around.
Well, John, when the electric function inside one of these batteries goes awry, what they call it a thermal runaway. And I talked a little bit with Chief Rezendi with the San Diego Fire Department about that, and he said that can lead to fires and it can lead to explosions. In fact, anything that heats up that battery enough can make it explode. He gives the example of being with the fire department when he has had to go to apartment fires where there's an electric bike inside with a lithium-ion battery.
More often than not, we are arriving to the incident to find the windows are blown out, the doors are off the hinges. And of course, for us in the fire service, that makes it extremely more complicated of an incident because now we have a ventilated fire.
Another thing you need to know about these batteries is when they're on fire, they're hard to put out. You can't just drown it with water. That doesn't work. You can't smother it with a blanket. Sometimes all firefighters can do when these batteries are on fire is just wait for them to use up the fuel and wait for them to go out.
Good Lord. Lithium-ion batteries are not the only power source that's a fire risk, though, correct?
No, of course not. And that's important because you always have to compare these batteries and their risk to what is the alternative. And so let's give the example of an electric car that uses not just one lithium-ion battery, but a whole bunch of them, a whole bunch of these cells in the car. Now compare the fire risk of that car battery to an internal combustion engine. Now, anyone who thinks an internal combustion engine is not a fire risk, well, doesn't know that much about them. And here's how Professor Griffith at UCSD made that comparison.
What's actually amazing is, in some sense, how safe lithium-ion batteries are, right? We produce billions of these every year. And every car has, somewhere in the order of several thousand batteries in it. Yet still, we have very, very few fires, in the context of all of that.
And John, like we said before, we are making billions and billions of these battery cells every year. They're being used in more and more products. Like you said before, electric cars, electric bikes, smartphones, they're everywhere.
So that feathers into this next question. How important are these lithium-ion batteries to our ever-changing power supply?
Well, one thing that Professor Griffiths said to me is, look, you have to understand one thing. There is no battery that does a better job of storing energy than a lithium-ion battery. So they are superior technology in a sense, and so they're not going to go away. I mean, as our power supply moves from fossil fuels to electric battery power, and we're doing this, for the sake of the environment because it's cleaner energy, but as that happens, you can't expect these batteries to go away, and you cannot expect their fire risk to go away either.
Yeah, we'll just deal with it. Tom Fudge, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Lots of heat to talk about over the course of the next several days. There are excessive heat warnings out for the interior valleys of both Friday, well, as we work our way throughout the remainder of today, I should say, into the start of the weekend, and throughout the deserts as we go right into next week. And this is going to be very, very intense heat. To make sure you're staying well hydrated, checking on the pets to make sure they're hydrated, friends and family as well, and again, taking breaks. Finding some spots with shade, perhaps if possible, or air conditioning. Overnight low temperatures for tonight will give us a break toward Ramona down to 64. It's a dry air that we do have in place, and so that's efficient in heating up and cooling off down to 77 in Borrego Springs. But we'll quickly turn the switch on the heat here as we go into tomorrow. Ramona approaching 100 degrees. Oceanside to Chula Vista, there will be some immediate coastal comfort here as we hang out right around 80 degrees. But look at this in Borrego Springs, 118. And we'll see that on repeat here as we go right into next week. Many of these spots that you see in the red here will achieve 110, if not higher, each day over the course of the next several days. So let's take a look at the numbers here throughout the coastal zones. And even notice as we go to Tuesday and Wednesday, a little warmer here as we climb back into the mid-80s, overnight lows into the mid-60s. Interior valleys, again, one round of warmth as we work our way into the weekend. And then heading in toward Tuesday and Wednesday, and even another round of even more intense heat as we climb up into the mid-90s. Meanwhile, with the mountainous terrain hanging out into the 80s here, there will be some breezes to contend with heading in towards Sunday. The deserts, though, will be taking the brunt of the heat as we stay into the mid and the upper 100 and teens, perhaps even near 120 degrees heading into Monday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick.
If you're looking for the best dog park to take your four-legged friend, look no further than Mission Bay. Fiesta Island was named Best Dog Park in the country by USA Today. The publication says nominees were first vetted by a panel of experts. Then they were placed into a poll for readers to vote on. Oceanside Harbor now has its first fisherman's market. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne shows us the pop-up happening every Sunday.
It doesn't get fresher than that. Everything that is sold at this market is produced by the boats that dock here and the local fishermen. My name's Travis Thielens, and I'm the owner of the Fisherman's Market of North County, and we're here every Sunday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Here we are in our first year of operation, our 10th Sunday in operation, and things are going good, and we're just trying to get the word out. It's really putting something there for the commercial fishermen that are local that didn't exist before, and it's really becoming utilitarian for them and the surrounding community.
My name's Paul Carameo. My boat's named the Aria B, and that's our fish company. The market's impacted our fishery because it allows us to directly sell our fish to the public, whereas before we would sell directly to wholesalers. The wholesaler has to obviously make money, and they basically set the prices for the market, and the fisherman ends up making less money than the wholesaler. and we're the ones that go out there and catch the fish and do all the hard work. What this market does is it gives us the option of selling some of our catch directly to the public, which the public gets to pay less for a fresher product, and we get paid more. So it's a win-win for the people that come buy fish directly from us, as well as the fishermen. The fish was caught within the last 3 days. Like, this fish was caught on Friday, was swimming in the ocean on Friday, and now this is Sunday morning, and it's going directly to people's houses.
So far, his is the wahoo.
I like halibut.
I'm easygoing. I love everything, so it's hard for me to pick something favorite. This is the second time I've gotten rock crab, and it was delicious the first time. So the benefit of having it here is it's coming right off the boat. Sometimes it's still flopping around, which is awesome for me because I want to make sure it's super, super fresh. So it's kind of nice, kind of, in a sense, breaking bread with everybody here and kind of getting some insight about like what's the catch of the week, you know, and knowing what is in season right now versus what's not, and why we might see more of one thing and not the next week.
We hope to offer more. We have other fishermen that are in this harbor as well that haven't had the opportunity to get their own booth yet because we've been so slow. There hasn't been enough disbursement of catch to be able to justify having more fishermen with more fish, because the last thing that we want is to go home with fish.
Next, what we want to do is give some demonstrations as far as how to prepare these local species, because we're going to be here every Sunday for the foreseeable future. So I want to give them more techniques into preparing them, and so they feel a little more confident in making their purchases.
I'll take 10 pounds of rock crab, please. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening and a wonderful weekend.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.